Hey everyone, it's Cadvance. Hey, guess what? This host you're talking to is turning the big 3-0 this August. So to celebrate my 30 years being alive, I decided to do a little thing to celebrate by doing throughout this year a whole list of top 30 lists, just to get you guys to know a little bit more about me, but also my tastes. Speaking of tastes, we're going to be talking about our first top 30 list here today, and it's not Christmas related. With that said, anybody who's anybody knows what a guilty pleasure is. For those who don't know in the audience, are not movie savvy with that term, a guilty pleasure is a movie that you know is bad, but you still tend to watch it. So I thought I might put the 30 films that I will continue to watch over and over and over again, even though I know that according to critics and stuff, they're bad. So, with that said, here are the ground rules for this list that we're bringing to this table today. Number 1, it has to be a movie that either bombed in theaters or was panned by the critics. Bonus points if it gets a couple of Razzies. 2, it can't be something that is like in the anime department or like that, because, well, anime is a whole different outlet. And number 3, we're going to try to keep this as short as we can, so there may be some slight spoilers in here, so just giving you guys a heads up. With that said, let's get to it. This is the Cadvance Top 30 Guilty Pleasure Movies. Number 30, Sphere. Based on the Michael Crichton novel of the same name, which at the time of this recording, I have yet to read that book. The story centers on a whole crew who go to an underwater lab where they discover that hidden in the deepest part of the ocean is in fact a spaceship, and inside the spaceship is some weird alien tech that starts to affect the crew in bizarre ways and forms. I'll be honest with you, the reason this one's kind of low on the list is because I haven't seen the film for a long while. I've seen bits and pieces on TV and all that, but really this is kind of low because, well, like I said, it's I have it on DVD. You're seeing the DVD art right there, but it's just I haven't gotten down to sit around and watch it in its widescreen format. But with that said, it's still a good movie, to my taste anyway. And that's all I really want to say about that. Not to mention you got some good cast too. Number 29, Wes Craven's New Nightmare. There are some good and bad Freddy Krueger movies. Some bad ones that come to my mind are Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, but we're not talking about the movies I hate. We're talking about the movies that... This is a film that is not so much a scary movie as much as a suspense story. So what is the movie about? Well, the story focuses on Heather Langenkamp, who played Nancy in the original Nightmare on Elm Street, who is starting to get bizarre things happening, including mysterious mail, a mysterious phone caller, and weird nightmares involving those that she knows. Is it the work of Freddy, or is it something more? Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I will admit I have seen this, but unfortunately I've seen this so many times that I'm not exactly quoting the film, but I am gonna say that I have, for a better lack of term, watched it enough times. You know, the cast is great. It really kind of is an interesting take on the Freddy Krueger mythos. And while a lot of people say it's not really a Freddy film, it's kind of what set up the groundwork for Wes Craven's next big project, Scream. And so, yeah, this is a film that it's not going to appeal to a whole bunch of people, but for people like me, I say it's okay. Number 28, Village of the Damned. The remake, not the original. So, yeah. For those who've never seen this movie and are wondering, this is a remake? Yeah, the film was a remake of a film made in the black and white eras of the 50s and 60s. For those who don't know what this is about, one day, for no unexplainable reason, everyone in town just suddenly falls over into like a coma. Within a few hours later, everyone wakes back up except for those who got killed by falling on a grill or whatever. And the most shocking thing about it is every single woman in town who is of that age is pregnant. And when all the kids are born, all the kids who are born during the coma phase all have white hair and kind of work with a hive mentality. Is there more to these little kids than meets the eye? You'll have to watch for yourself. So yeah, Village of the Damned. What's really kind of sad about this film is that this was one of the last films made with Christopher Reeve before he got in his horse riding accident. There's also some other good actors in here. My personal favorite being Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker and the Joker, who plays a priest in the movie. But I have seen the original, and while I admit the original is a little bit more creepier, I think I still got a space in my heart for the remake because pretty much it was the first one I saw, so I've kind of got a little bias on that. With that said, all in all, it's an okay film, so give it a shot. Number 27, the 1999 remake of The Haunting. Yeah, I know Nostalgia Critic has pretty much said that this movie is garbage, but again, like Village of the Damned, this was the first Haunting movie I saw, so I may have some bias by saying, I think and I will admit, and this is going to really tick off the Nostalgia Critic when I say I actually saw the original and it just didn't feel the same, and that's not a good thing. For those who've never seen the movie, the basic plot of this film is that a woman is basically being kicked out of her home after her mother dies, but for some reason she sees in the newspaper a special get together that a scientist is performing, and while it's supposed to be on the outside, it's supposed to be a sleep study. The real truth is the scientist is using him because the house that they're taking the test in is supposedly haunted, and basically he's doing a whole Ichabod Crane from Batman scenario, testing their fear, if you will. So now this one I actually did see in quote-unquote theaters, and by quote-unquote theaters I mean it was a drive-in theater. So it was a spooky little movie, and it was interesting. Not to mention you had Liam Neeson himself as a kind of a antagonist at first, but becomes protagonist near the end. But yeah, it's all, my opinion is mine, so if you don't like it, well, that's fine, but I still give it a shot. Number 26, Jonah Hex. Be warned, there will be a lot of DC movies on this list, and Jonah Hex is the first. For those who don't know about the original, this movie, the titular Jonah Hex was a Confederate soldier who left, went and settled down, had family, And what basically happened was his superior, played by John Malkovich, showed up, killed his family, and then, as punishment, he branded his face with a red hot iron. Later on, some Native Americans were able to surgically fix it so that the brand wasn't so obvious, but now he's kind of got like this weird like mouth thing. I know it's a trademark of the character, but it still looks freaky. It's not as, though I will admit, it's not nearly as freaky as it looks in the comics. So, okay, I'll just be honest with you. This is a weird movie. I still like it because it's just kind of a out there scenario. Though I will admit, I do want to read the comics more because it's like, okay, I know this can be better. Let's see how it looks in its original format. So, I say, if you want to get some good material but don't want to see some bad acting, read the comics. Otherwise, give it a rent. Number 25, Encino Man. Oh yes, Pauly Shore. Remember when he was a thing? Yeah, for those who don't know Pauly Shore, in the late 80s, early 90s, Pauly Shore was this great comedian who was known for being kind of well, he wasn't a stoner, but let's just say he was kind of the 90s equivalent of a hippie. And this was one of his first films, which I still just love. For those who don't know, the story centers around two friends played by Lord of the Rings Sean Astin and Pauly Shore, who are digging out the area to build a pool, but hidden in the dirt of the pool area is a giant piece of ice, which is weird considering it's in California, but I digress. Inside the giant ice block is a caveman played by relatively unknown at the time, Brendan Fraser, and because of heaters and stuff, the caveman is unfrozen from the ice, and with a little help from the two buddies, they get him all snazzed up, and now he becomes Mr. Popular at the school. So, I mean, it's a 90s guilty pleasure, let's just face it. And it's not just because of Pauly Shore, it's because you like Brendan Fraser, you'll like this. You like Sean Astin, you'll like this too. So, I liked it. I don't see why anybody else wouldn't. Number 24, Spawn, the live-action movie. Okay, if you were a guy growing up in the 90s and pretty much wanted to read something that was not Marvel or DC but was darker, then pretty much Spawn was your fix. For those who don't know this movie, the basic plot is the story focuses on a former military assassin named Al Simmons, who basically was double-crossed by his boss and basically was left to die in a chemical plant explosion. But what he doesn't know until later when he comes back is that after he died, his soul was sent to hell, and basically Simmons literally met the devil, though he was called Malbogia. Anyhow, the devil made him a deal. If Simmons leads his army, he will allow Al to return to Earth, albeit looking like Freddy Krueger's stunt double, and return to his wife, even though the time it took him to get back to Earth resulted in like 5 years and his wife moving on to his best friend, and not only them getting married but also having a child. But Simmons, upon returning back to Earth, is given a sentient suit which gives him superpowers and plans to get his revenge on the man who double-crossed him and left him to die. Okay, let's just face it. This is a PG-13 movie that basically was made from a formula that pretty much was on HBO. Literally, there was a cartoon that was on HBO. But I digress. This is kind of a fun movie. Just for the late 90s kind of weirdness. For me, the weirdest thing that was in the casting was John Leguizamo as a character called Clown, who pretty much was in a giant suit the whole time, so it kind of made him look a little bit weird. But the CG was okay. The movie was, overall, it's fun for just some mindless popcorn entertainment. Number 23, Suburban Commando. Hulk Hogan. For those who don't remember this guy or know him from what he does now, back in the late 80s, early 90s, Hulk Hogan was basically a big, not only a big star wrestler, but he was also an awesome, action star, appearing in things like Rocky 3, his brief little cameo in Gremlins 2, Mr. Nanny. But the one that always stuck in my heart was this title, Suburban Commando. It's so good I bought it twice, though for different reasons than you think. What's the plot of this movie? Well, Hulk Hogan plays Shep Ramsey, a sort of space Rambo who basically has to crash on Earth for 6 weeks because he basically messed up his ship. While there, he takes up residence in an apartment owned by Christopher Lloyd and Shelley Duvall. Anyhow, it's kind of your typical fish out of water while fighting monsters and bad guys from space. It's early 90s, just B-movie fun, and it should be noted that this film is particularly famous for creating the famous meme, "I was frozen today!" So, yeah, if you haven't seen this film, I say give it a shot, just for kicks and giggles. Number 22, Hudson Hawk. Bruce Willis. You're not going to be on here you're going to be on here a few times. But what is this movie about? Well, Hudson Hawk stars Bruce Willis as the titular Hudson Hawk, a con man who just recently got out of jail, but is immediately soon brought in because he's hired to basically retrieve parts for a device that will make gold. Along the way, he gets some help from some friends, makes some enemies, and yeah, this is a film that actually won a couple Razzies. Points for that. I think, first of all, this movie has some pretty catchy music. I'm not going to lie. So, yeah. It's funny, just Bruce Willis when he was during his funny phase. Not quite his stoic action phase yet. So, yeah. I think you should give it a shot just to see how funny Bruce Willis can be. Number 22, Fan Four Stick. Yes, folks, I'm putting it on the list. Yes, it's true. the movie does have problems. And yes, it's true. The film did not do as well as people were expecting. But like another movie that's on this list, it's because of the fact that the movie was hindered with so many problems during all the production of the movie that makes me feel sympathy for this film. For those who luckily haven't seen this film, basically it's based on the Ultimate Universe version of the Fantastic Four, in which they're all teenagers and they're all, instead of getting their powers from going into space, they get their powers by going into an alternate dimension. Yeah, it's cool, but the execution was not as good as people were hoping. From the start, it looked like it was going to be really good. I mean, the idea that they're all, like I said, instead of going into outer space to get their powers, they get it from going into an alternate universe. But it does kind of fall a little bit. It kind of feels rushed near the end. And all in all, I think it could have been better. So, yeah. Number 21, The Phantom. Now, for those who came in late, The Phantom was a comic that came out way back in like the 30s and 40s. And they just felt like in the time when we're having like all the Batmans and everything, it was time to do a superhero that was a little bit outside the norm. What is the plot about? Years and years ago, before the story began, a young boy's ship was destroyed during a pirate raid, and he was the lone survivor. He eventually drifted through the sea onto an island where he discovered that the island had a guardian in the form of the Ghost Who Walks. And so it's become his mission to protect the island's sacred treasure from evil forces who want to, you guessed it, take over the world. Of course! But Billy Zane is pretty good. Catherine Zeta-Jones, anyone? So yeah, it's a good film. It's kind of an interesting watch. And if you haven't seen it yet, you could just rent it. They probably have it on Netflix, but I could be wrong.